Hello my dear friends, you're in the Military Summary channel, and this video we're going to discuss the most important events that took place during the previous 12 hours. We have lots of very interesting updates, so let's start. And the most important updates are coming from the United States of America, so let's discuss them in details. According to information we have, British Prime Minister Starmer arrived at the White House to meet with Trump sometime after Macron arrived. It is noteworthy that Macron himself left empty-handed, as reported by a number of Western media outlets. They both went to discuss Ukraine, its security guarantees and peace talks. Now we have a lot of different statements, and now we start receiving first results of these talks between the Prime Minister and the President of the United States of America. US President Donald Trump expressed confidence that Russian President Vladimir Putin would not break a peace agreement if one were reached. I've known him for a long time, and I don't believe that he would go back on his word, Trump told the Washington Post when asked what he would do if Putin failed to uphold the terms of peace deal. Another important statement made by Trump. Trump denied the question of whether the US would come to rescue if Russia attacked British troops in Ukraine. No, they don't need help, Trump told reporters. Earlier, the US president also refused to say the same to French President Macron, and Britain and France say that they will not be able to send peacekeepers to Ukraine unless they receive guarantees of protection from the United States of America. And the most important is that Trump said that he would sign an agreement with Zelensky on Friday, under which the United States would become the main partner in the development of rare earth metals, oil and gas in Ukraine. Now let's discuss several statements made by United Kingdom Prime Minister. Britain is ready to send ground troops and their forces to ensure peace in Ukraine as a part of a settlement of the conflict in Ukraine. Another important thing is that Britain will provide more military aid to Ukraine this year than ever before. But probably the most important statement made by Prime Minister of the United Kingdom is that, and on the issues like Ukraine, thank you for changing the focus of the conversation to show that a peace agreement is possible, and we are ready to work with you to make sure that this peace agreement is durable, lasts a long time, and that this agreement goes down in history as an agreement that no one has broken, and we will work together. Let's make sure that this happens. So all these things that we have just discussed is the things that these guys, Trump, Macron, Starmer, allowed us to see and allow us to understand. Now we think that, that United Kingdom, France managed to convince Trump to continue supporting Ukraine. Now we see that most likely something is going to continue. Maybe now all them together, Trump, Macron and Starmer will try to force Zelensky to sign peace agreement or something like this. And this is exactly what they want us to see and to understand. But behind the scenes, a completely different thing happened, and I would like to discuss with you this in details. I'll remind you that according to our and my understanding of the situation, in December of 2024, during the last months, almost the last months of the presidency of Biden, he transferred the president of Ukraine, Zelensky, under the control of Macron and under the control of the Prime Minister of United Kingdom. Biden know that it was very big mistake to keep Zelensky under the control of CIA, because when Trump comes to the power, obviously he will take control over Zelensky, and he can use Zelensky against Biden and his family. So that's why in December, Biden decided to transfer him, Zelensky, to the special forces and special services, intelligence services of France and the United Kingdom. And since that moment, more precisely since the moment when Trump became a president, there were a very tough and very difficult negotiations between Trump, Macron and Keir Starmer. Basically, the president of France and the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom were trying to get as much as possible, money, influence, maybe something else, in exchange for Zelensky, in exchange that Zelensky will be returned back under the control of the CIA, because Zelensky before December of 2024 was under complete control of the CIA, and everything that Biden wanted, Zelensky did exactly. So that's why Keir Starmer decided to bring Zelensky as close as possible to him on the territory of Ireland, and Zelensky was waiting for the end of the negotiation process between Keir Starmer and Donald Trump. And after the negotiation process finished, and most likely in favor of United Kingdom and the Prime Minister of United Kingdom, Keir Starmer, Zelensky received an order to come to New York, to come to the United States of America. And currently there is a process not of a signing of a deal or for rare metals of Ukraine. Obviously something like this is happening as well. The most important is that now is the process of transferring of Zelensky himself as a president of Ukraine from the control of the special forces of United Kingdom and France in hands of CIA, which will make Zelensky under complete control of CIA, and everything that states say to Zelensky he will do and complete in a minute or immediately or something like this. So this is the situation. This is the transferring back of Zelensky under the influence and the control of CIA. Nothing more. Now let's return back to Ukraine and let's discuss in details. Obviously now Trump will be able to give Zelensky orders, and most likely he will order him either to start the negotiation process with the Russian Federation and to start the ceasefire before the 20th of April, or maybe Trump will change his mind because now he controls him for 100% and he can do whatever he's like. Anyway, sooner or later we will understand this. Now let's discuss the situation on the ground, and first we're going to talk about the Suj Direction, where the Russians continue their offensive operation. During the previous 24 hours, the Russians once again managed to improve their positions on 3 directions. According to information we have, another day in a row we continue receiving reports that the Russians improved their positions in the eastern part of Lebedevka, and the Russians are about to begin offensive in the direction of the settlement of Kasachiya Loknya. Furthermore, the Russians once again confirmed they managed to establish complete control over the settlement by the name of Nikolskoye, and from these positions the Russians will try to cut the railways and Ukrainian positions in this area with the purpose to cut supply and support of those Ukrainians that are currently located on the territory of Malaya Loknya, more precisely around the former women prison. Furthermore, according to information we have, the Russians continue their pressure from the northern direction in the area of Viktorovka and Malaya Loknya from the north. So the next several days there are going to be very heavy clashes in this area, and the main target and the main purpose of the Russians is to establish complete control over everything that is located to the west of this red line. And most likely this is going to happen because there are still a lot of days before the beginning of the negotiation process, despite the fact that Zelensky today was successfully transferred under the control of the CIA. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the northern Kupiansk direction, where according to information we have, the Russians managed to improve their position significantly, almost on the northern outskirts of the settlement by the name of Kupiansk. So let's discuss in details. This is the map that you could see yesterday by the end of the 27th of February of 2025, and by the morning of the 28th of February, the Russians managed to improve their position significantly, and the Russians from this foothold are about to begin offensive operation in the direction of Kondrashevka, and the Russians will advance further along the river Oskol towards the settlement of Golubovka. So the next days we are going to see clashes, and first updates will come from this area. Now let's move further and let's discuss a very weird situation on the line between the city of Chasiv Yar and the city of Toretsk. As for the city of Chasiv Yar, according to information we have, during the previous 24 hours, the Ukrainians carried out several counterattacks in the northwestern part of the settlement of Chasiv Yar, and as a result of counteroffensive, the Ukrainians managed to restore control over several buildings. You know that from this perspective they managed to take under control just several streets, and from this perspective can't change anything. But telling the truth, we see that Ukrainians have become more aggressive in their counterattacks, and telling the truth, during the previous several weeks they managed to restore lots of territories they lost during the Russian offensive. As for the Russian side, according to information we have, they managed to take under control several more blocks and buildings in the central part of the city. This area is about to be finished by the Russians very soon, and furthermore, according to different mappers, both neutral and pro-Russian, as a result of offensive operation, the Russians managed to answer another micro-district of the city of Chasiv Yar, the micro-district of Shevchenka. Let's take a look at how the map was changing. For example, this is the situation by the end of the 27th of February, and this is the situation by the beginning of the 28th. We see that the battle for the city of Chasiv Yar is about to be finished. Very weird and strange updates are coming from the settlement of Toretsk. According to information we have during the previous 24 hours, the Ukrainians managed to improve their position significantly. First of all, let's discuss video that was published by the Russian side. In this video that was dated on the late February, we can see how the Russians were bombing with artillery or with FPV drones the edge Ukrainian positions in the central part of the city of Chasiv Yar. This building, of course, was immediately geolocated, and according to coordinates and the positions on the map, this is exactly the building that was bombed by the Russians. Based on this video, based on this report, we came to a conclusion that Ukrainians, as a result of counter-offensive operation, during the previous 24 hours, during the previous 48, maybe 72 hours, managed to restore control over this huge pocket in the central part of the city. Currently, it's very difficult to understand what exactly the Ukrainians are trying to achieve, but some sources are saying that in this part of the city, there were several groups or one group of Ukrainians that were caught in cauldron. And currently, the main purpose of this operation, this task, is to unblock encircled Ukrainians and to give them a corridor for evacuation. Maybe this is exactly what we can see right now. Anyway, I'll remind you that just yesterday we discussed another Ukrainian attack in the same area. Not yesterday, but on the 26th of February, there was a video that was published by the Russian side. This is exactly the beginning of that counterattack, when the Ukrainians took under control first buildings and first micro districts and blocks of the central city. And today we got another proof that Ukrainians managed to improve their position significantly. And furthermore, that attack wasn't the only attack in this area. According to different pro-Russian resources, another route of attack took place from the western part of this pocket. According to information we have, according to pro-Russian resources, as a result of counterattack, the Ukrainians also managed to establish complete control over this part of the city. As for now, we're not adjusting the map, but if we receive geolocations, of course we're gonna do this. So maybe everything inside of this yellow line is already under complete Ukrainian control. Furthermore, another video yesterday we got from the southwestern part of the Zabala district. I'll remind you that yesterday the Russian sources published the video how several Russian soldiers were clearing this area, and in this video we can see a Russian soldier that dropped an anti-tank mine inside of the building with the purpose to destroy the temporary deployment point of the armored force of Ukraine. As a result of explosion, as you can see, the entire building was reduced to ruins. And this event took place exactly in this area, and today several neutral mappers reported that Ukrainians got there not accidentally. That was a counterattack, another counterattack from the Ukrainian side. So summarizing everything, as a result of counter-offensive operation, maybe the Ukrainians even managed to enter the southwestern part of Zabala. And as for now, it's very difficult to understand what exactly the Ukrainians are planning, why the Russians can't do anything with this, because this is not the first time when the Russians suffer problems in this area. This is probably fourth or fifth episode since the beginning of this year, when the Russians were forced to fall back from different parts of the city of Toretsk. Probably the Russians have a lot of problems with personnel, and so that's why if they don't stabilize the situation, there are very high chances that the Ukrainians may try to counterattack the settlement with more forces with the purpose to restore the entire control over this area. And this is going to be complete disaster and media loss for the Russians. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the Dnipro direction. Today, according to information we have, the Russians managed to improve their position significantly and to take under control completely the settlement of Zaporizhia. We have geolocations that were published by the Ukrainian side. In this video that was published by the armored forces of Ukraine, we can see a lot of Russian soldiers that were moving through the settlements under fire and under attack of Ukraine FPV drones. There are in this video there were lots of episodes. Two of them were geolocated. One of them was geolocated in the most northwestern part of the settlement. Another one was geolocated in the vicinity of this tree line. Based on this video, we have adjusted the map and we have colored the fields and tree lines and farms behind these positions in the complete Russian favor. We see that the Russians continue advancing, and we see that the settlement of Preobrazhenka was caught in cauldron or was caught in pincers. Most likely the Russians the next several days will try to continue offensive operation with the purpose to encircle the Ukrainians and to force them to fall back from this area. If the Ukrainians, and most likely this is going to happen during the next several nights. Now let's move further and let's discuss the situation in the area of luckily Constantinople. Today, different neutral mappers colored the southern part and the southwestern part of Constantinople once again in Russian favor. We see that the Ukrainians still there, they still hold their positions despite the fact that the situation for them is very difficult. And probably the most important updates of Russian progress advances coming from the South Donetsk direction, where during the previous 24 hours the Russians managed to improve their position significantly. For example, this is the map that you could see yesterday on the evening of the 27th of February of 2025, and by the morning of the 28th of February of 2025, several sources reported that the Russians, as a result of offensive operation, managed to establish complete control over the settlement of Burlatske. This information was confirmed by neutral mappers, by pro-Russian resources, and the most important, this information was confirmed by pro-Ukrainian sources. Furthermore, according to the same pro-Ukrainian sources, another route of Russian attack, another Russian breakthrough can be found in the area of Privilna. The Russians both managed to answer the village itself, and another group of Russian soldiers moved further in the northwestern direction with the purpose to get the outskirts of the settlement of Shevchenka. The situation for the Ukrainians in this area is very difficult, and now we understand the main purpose of the Russians. And during the next several days or weeks, the Russians are planning and trying to take under complete control over these territories. We're talking about the villages of Dnieproenergia, the village of Novocheritovato, the village of Burlatske, Privilne, the settlement of Vilna Pole, and the most important, the settlement of Shevchenka. This is the biggest settlement in this part of the South Donetsk direction, and if the Russians are able to take the settlement under complete control, this can be used as a very powerful foothold for further offensive operation in many directions. Basically, from this point, the Russians enter the operational space, and then they can move in many directions, including in the direction of this dense network of the fortifications, which can be also used in the future by the Russians as a very powerful base for further offensives towards the river of Dnipro. As for the Zaporizhia direction, we have several changes on the ground. If you remember, during the previous several days, we've been receiving lots of updates that the Russians managed to secure the settlement of Petykhatki completely, and we got several videos where we can see Ukrainians surrendering the Russian soldiers in hands of Russian soldiers. And today we got geolocations published by the Ukrainian side. In this video we can see how the Ukrainians were FPV droning and were attacking the soldiers of the armed force of Russian Federation in this part of Petykhatki, which is 100% proof that the settlement indeed was captured and secured by the Russians by the morning of the 28th of February. Maybe today the Minister of Defense of Russian Federation will confirm this information. If it happens, then most likely the Russians will continue moving further in the northern direction towards the settlement of Sherbaki, Mali, Sherbaki, Lapkova, Kupiansk. The Russians for this area main purpose is to establish complete control over everything that is located inside of this red line, and this will allow the Russians to begin possible offensive operation to the settlement of Orekhov from the west. And that's it for the short video. Military Summary channel reminds we condemn any violence in the world. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to my channel, put your likes, join my Patreon, and have a good day. Bye bye.